All right, next question.
All ages are safe to use this system, I'm assuming?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Here are the guidelines. You do not want to hook up anybody to the harness that has a pacemaker or defibrillator.
No pacemaker or
defibrillator. You don't want to hook up anyone that has a history of epilepsy or epileptic seizures. And maybe hypersensitive people, they seem to feel like more than you think they should. So anyway, that's what Metaspace is for. Like what I'm doing right now, I'm in so-called virtual mode, and it's very effective both ways, scanning as well as treating in that mode. So you don't have to, if in doubt, skip the harness and just work in Metaspace.
And how does it work in Metaspace? Does the person put their hand on the plate then?
No connection at all to the system.
How does the machine know that it's testing one particular individual in the room, not me?
Oh, well, that's when you have to kind of fill out this here a little bit more complete and precise. You want to put in where they are. As much as you can even upload a picture of the person, and so on. And you want to enable field validation here.
Virtual patient. So do they even have to be?
No, they don't have to be. You can treat somebody in Australia or in Africa.
Oh, wow. So another question I've come up with is how many things can you treat in one visit, or do you just do muscle testing to find out what the person's body can handle in that one time?
Well, that would be the ideal situation. So since you specifically have some NAET training, you can just go with the basic NAET concept. Let's go there. So this allergen panel here, or allergen test, these two go to the same place. This used to be called the NAET panel, so it's very much organized after the NAET database. You can see that,
Yeah.
PVF, calcium mix, vitamin C mix. So this was all developed during my NAET years. So now, you don't even have to do a scan. You could just, let's say you want to do vitamin C today because it's next in line, or because that's what should be done. You can just click on here, but you still want to, you want to hook up the person and do the calibration like we did in the beginning. So now you can just do the treatment straight here. You put in your timer, let's say 20 minutes, right, with your average treatment duration, 20 minutes, and you would do your treatment. So now it's doing vitamin C with BVF. Now,
okay.
The way this works is it would do vitamin C for 20 minutes and then do BVF. Here, a combination, which is here, effect. It will do that only for 30 seconds at the end. So that's why I always I recommend to do the quick cycle here. And now it will do vitamin C here for 1 minute, and then it will do BVF for 30 seconds, and it will come back to vitamin C for 1 minute. So this quick cycle function here will cycle through these additional feedbacks, 20 times. So it'll give those additional feedbacks. In NAET, we used to call that combination, more emphasis.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So that's that. Of course, the alternative is to run a scan and select. So you have all that available here. So on a new patient, on a brand new patient, you may want to do the basic item test, which is the first 3 NAET kits in the NAET system, but it's only 134 items. So it's less confusing and it's more limited, you know. It's more limited. Sometimes it's an easier way to get started out with somebody because you don't have all these viruses show up, all the stuff that may scare people, and you have a lot of explaining to do. Because in the beginning, you know,
Right.
you may want to get started with some basic items, like the basic 15 is what Dr. Devi used to call it, just the basic food items, which you're always going to look out for them anyway. But having said that, right now, let's to follow up on your question. I'm just going to do a scan on the comprehensive database, okay, which is 2,400, which is 2,400 items. And there, ideally, you would want to then muscle test your results to decide on what you're going to treat.
Can you do the muscle testing when the person is already hooked up to the harnesses?
I disconnect them and then do my muscle testing, and once I put the treatment together, then I connect them again and continue the treatment. Most of the time.
Okay.
Now, you know, when I do an ordinary allergy type of treatment, I only use the head harness. I don't put on the full harness.
Oh, it'll read it even without the rest of it.
You don't necessarily need the full harness all the time. So what we'll do is, what we really should do is, I should put you in as a patient. You know, the patient here is Joe Public. Yeah. So now remember, the result of this scan is just a snapshot of what your body's metabolism right at this moment, right? So if you would scan in the morning or if you would scan in the middle of the night, different things would come up because your body does different things. And so sometimes it's pretty obvious what you need to treat and work on, you know, because you're working on a real person, you know, their symptoms, you know, their history, so it jumps right at you. I mean, one of the most, you know, interesting that I've learned over the last couple of decades working with this technology is just how many infections everybody has, you know, that we don't know about. I mean, we only look at infections when we're deathly ill, when we're literally at death's doorstep. Then we say, "Oh, you got an infection." But our bodies are fighting infections constantly, every day, every minute of every day, and so this scan makes you aware of a lot of these things, and you can start paying attention to it long before it becomes, you know, a life-threatening event. So now with this here results, right? It's not so easy to figure out just, well, what should we treat? Okay, because we have a mixture of things. We have a virus, we have an emotion. Ignoring is an emotion. We have a bacteria. We have something airborne, which would be peanut butter. We have a food item, which is vitamin B6. So now I would always ask, you know, the person I just scanned, I would say, are you taking a multivitamin? Are you taking a B vitamin, a B complex vitamin? Because if they just took something like that earlier today, then the software might change, right? It becomes present. It picked it up because there's just an abundance of it in their body, not necessarily because it's an allergy. Brain 6 would be an anatomical location, stucco is a material, and there's a fungus. So we've got 3 different infectious agents. HERS2 gene is a gene, gallium is a chemical that's usually used for is that a contrast material? Oh, that's gallidium. So gallium, let's see if there's an explanation. Well, is immune factor, you know, urethritis is an inflammation, melatonin is a hormone, zinc is a mineral. So that would be a regular food item. dengue fever is enterovirus is a virus. So here, certainly muscle testing would be appropriate. The first thing you would want to know is, am I focusing on food, airborne, or an immune treatment? We have the same situation here. We could automatically, actually you would do pretty good if you do nothing and just let the computer do a feedback on those 3 items that you have here. The red, the yellow, and the blue. You know, in which case you would want to maybe add some combination. I always put in digested enzymes, DNA always, RNA always with viruses. Hypothalamus gets the brain involved. It kind of is a vector to the brain, and you know you can do organs is pretty frequent. All right, so then we do quick cycle and we do a med. So now we're doing automatic, and then these combinations over here, these additional feedbacks over here. So we'll let it run through real quick.
So the quick cycle will still run for 20 minutes, but
yep,
it'll keep cycling through the faster on each item.
It will integrate the additional feedback, which are combinations. It will emphasize them more significantly than it otherwise would.
Okay.
And I think these combinations, which I call here additional feedback, they are very important. They make a big difference on how effective this treatment is going to be. All right, so now it's just finishing up that. So now it's doing those combinations. Doing base now, which is digestive enzymes, and then it's going to go right down the list, DNA, RNA, hypothalamus, organs, and then go back to the main list over here, the main layer.
So let's say I'm treating my dog who has megaesophagus. Do I hook myself or somebody up to the harnesses and then hold on to the dog? Or do I just use this space?
No, you treat the dog just like a person. You put him into the demographics. Hopefully he'll have a name. You put in the name. You put in, if he's present, you don't even have to put in the location. But if he would be away, you would put in the location. Just put in his name and treat him just like a person. That's the only difference. So you can treat him in metaspace, but if the dog is present, you can. So there's a whole channel on that YouTube channel I told you about. There's different playlists or whatever they call it. I forget. One is IMAET System. One is the show method, which the IMAET System, and then there is also one that's called Pet Bites, and there's a whole bunch of videos. Okay, so now it's going back to do that, right? Depending on the size of the dog, there's different ways of hooking a dog up. You know, if it's a small dog, you can just use your head harness and put it around its belly. If it's a bigger dog, then you need what's called a pet pad that you can plug in. And there's another special harness for horses. So let's save this thing here real quick. So this date, you can always bring that scan back by double-clicking on this date here. But let me see. So we got pets here. The dog. Let's see if this condition that you're talking about is in here. What is megaesophagus?
The esophagus is like stretched out so the food doesn't stay down in the stomach, so he regurgitates his food all the time.
Really? Oh, it's on the cat.
Right there.
Oh, that's on the cat. Look at that. Yeah, there you go.
Can you use it even though it's a profile?
Yeah, how big is your dog?
He's a puppy. He's a Bernedoodle, miniature Bernedoodle.
So just put if you were really small, you could put one of the extremity harness ends around them. But just use your head harness. But the pet pad is $360.
Okay.
Okay. Let's come back here. And then you do the same process. You kind of muscle test, or you use your best judgment in figuring out what you're going to treat them for, right?
Okay.
Okay. So you know how to get here. So I showed you how you could do that. Now you can do also another thing, and that is override this and say you want to treat fungus 11. That's what you want to do. Then you just click on it and you treat that. Or the third option is you right click here and you can a particular treatment in here, okay? So let's say, the symptoms point towards an infection. Viral makes sense. You look for the viruses that came up, in recent. CSO. Dengue fever is another virus. Okay? And you put them into what I call the treatment basket or the custom treatment panel. So in this case, we would be treating, this would be the treatment, an antiviral treatment or a focus on the immune system to get rid of these viruses. So, things get complicated. So this is a gene, but, it doesn't mean that there's a problem with this gene. Hers too is kind of estrogen related, like certain breast cancers are HERS positive, they call them, which means these people are going to amoxicillin. Anyway, genes and enzymes like this, you have to muscle test to find out, is this something that should go into treatment or no? Because again, it's just measuring things that are out of balance, and at the time of the scan, maybe that gene was just active, very active, and so it picked it up, but that doesn't automatically mean it's a problem, right?
Okay.
So with functional items like genes and enzymes, and so you always have to keep in mind, well, is this just a normal metabolic variant today or at the moment, or is this something that's actually a problem that should go into the treatment? You may want to combine it with an emotion, ignoring, if that is a problem, Usually it isn't, because emotions also come up, they're normal as emotions. Sometimes they are a problem, and then you put into the treatment. Let's say the problem. So often you can put that in, you don't need a separate treatment, but your question was, things can I put into? Okay, so here it comes the common sense into the picture. Use you can always do a couple of items, a couple of different layers. Like we've got the virus layer, right? So now we could add a food layer, but you don't want to, you wouldn't necessarily want to put in zinc now also, because that's a totally different item there. And you have to look at it this way. All these food items, like vitamin B6, has several different genes that are responsible for its metabolism. So in the end, that's what we are working on, to modulate the expression of those particular genes. So certainly zinc has a totally different set of genes than vitamin B6. There's no relation, no correlation, nothing. So it really needs to go in a separate treatment. So if we decide to do B6, then we stick with that. And you can always go down and look a little further. Like brain 6 was up there and brain 1 is down here. Maybe we should put brain in there or something. Mammary gland and HERS, you're always looking to connect the dots. Just to get an impression on what to do, Both of these have to do with estrogen, possibly, and so on. So right now I'm looking for anything that's maybe have to do with B vitamins or minerals. Okay, so this would be a treatment. So now you could have decided differently. You know, we could have decided to go to if your muscle testing said bacteria, well, then you would go to bacteria, and maybe you would add this guy down here, this one, right? That would make sense. Yeah. Vitamin B6 would still make sense, possibly. If you're doing more of an environmental treatment, then you would go maybe with stucco and with gallium, for example. You know, two foreign things, two chemical things that could make sense to put into one treatment. But anyway, what I'm trying to show is that you want to work in layers. You want to put things together that make sense.
Okay.
So you could also do some airborne stuff, so goose feather and molds. Molds are in a category of their own. That would be another layer. That fungus here and this mold here. You always want to look for things that have that are in a similar category. So you address similar genes, you know, groups of genes. Functionally, that's how you want to think. So you could do chicken and the goose feathers. They would go together. What you don't want to do is just throw everything all together. Now, if a person has had already 100 treatments, you know, it becomes a little bit easier to possibly booster treatments, you know. But in general terms, that's what you want to do. You want a particular group of items. The fungus and molds, you also always want to use DNA as a combination. It's smart to put hypothalamus in as a combo, all right? And then always want to use the quick step. Another treatment. So that's kind of how you would use this panel in an advanced form. So even if you do the comprehensive database, which we just did, you know, you always want to look out for basic 15 type of food items. In this case, it would be vitamin B6 and zinc. And further, there's still chicken. You don't want to scroll down too far, you know, unless the person has had many treatments, then you can go down further and further. But you really, the first, you know, 30 treatments, you want to work off of the top 20 items or so, sometimes 25. So now it's recycling this way, right? The combinations. So there you go. Now that's more effective than just doing a vial, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you wanted to, you know, then you can follow. It's always a good. Okay. So what you don't want to do now is if you just ran this panel here with 2,400 items, you don't want to run a bunch of other reactivity tests like this one. You don't want to do this one on top of just the allergen, you know, because this one is 7,000 items. You make a decision in the beginning, am I going to use this panel or the other panel or the allergen panel? And then you work with the information you got, because each of these panels has so much information. It's plenty for anybody to do a treatment on.
Okay.
We'll come back to this one. If you want to get out of this one, you have, unless you go out of the program, but just to get out of this, you have to click on this button and come back here. However, you can do other treatments, but they're more supportive treatments. to support the main objective, which is, this treatment is the main treatment or the viral treatment. So it's all about supporting that. And you can do that by doing treatment, or you could, of course, the chakras you usually would do in the beginning of the treatment. You balance the chakras, because I can do manually. So some of these things you can do in the beginning, in preparation, and some of these, usually I do the acupoint after the treatment. Also, sometimes I sort of support it, even though they stand alone. Sometimes people, and we just do sarco treatment for 20 minutes. And you have to muscle test. You can't scan in this panel. And then, of course, this is a nice supportive panel where you balance the brain waves, right? So when you balance, or the hemispheres.
But just one of these at a time? That's where I get confused. How much can the body handle at a time?
Well, you don't want to do too much, If you do a preparatory panel in the beginning, let's say you do the chakras in the beginning, then you do the Allison panel in a full 20-minute, 25-minute treatment. And then you come here and you realize, and you want to do some brainwave balancing. That will be the third in support of everything. Then that will be enough. 24 hours is what these treatments need time to implement and for the body to work up what you have just put in, information-wise. So in 24 hours, you can do another treatment.
Okay.
You don't want to be doing too much in 24 hours. Just think about what the body can take. What can it actually execute on that you're expecting it to implement and to change functionally. If we just asked it to get rid of 3 different kinds of viruses, well, that takes a lot of energy and effort. And if it actually will do that in the next 24 hours, you did a pretty successful treatment. So geared towards supporting that effort, and then come back another day as early as 24 hours and do it all over again. So here, in all these panels, that come up with a number, what you want to be doing is looking at, sometimes you have to muscle test, sometimes it's obvious. If the number is too high, or sometimes it's also too low. And actually, the feedback needs to be done on one. So delta is 54, 50 is like right in the middle. So theta would be kind of low. But the thing is programmed to just show high. So beta is 30. So that's 16 from 100, and this is. So anyway, a good muscle testing question would be, should we do, besides alpha waves, should we also do theta waves? Because that's the lowest number. Okay. Sometimes it's really extreme, and it's obvious that you should do the lower number rather than the high number, because the high number is, let's say, 60, and this one would be 9. So this would be much more severe. The low end, would be much more severely out of balance than the higher number. So let me just show you that maybe in this panel. So we can test the meridians, right, instead of the points. We did the points earlier. Now we're doing the meridians. And the results will be in numbers and color-coded. But here it becomes really obvious if you need to treat the high numbers or the low numbers, or both. because the 50, the number 50 would be a middle. Okay, so yeah, case in point, here 70 is the highest number, which is 30 from the top, while 7 is the lowest number. So in this scan, the small intestine is undercharged more severely than anything else. So I would override this whole thing here and actually work on a small intestine, right? And put some energy in there, charge it up, or open it up, open up the meridian, or charge up the meridian, whichever way you're looking at it.
Okay.
Those are the little tricks, as you get more familiar with the software, it gives you a lot of information, and you can pick up on that, and it makes a big difference in your results if you interpret that correctly,
Okay. So why did the red, the yellow, and that other third color, why did those come up and they were actually the highest numbers if they aren't the issue?
Well, the software doesn't know the issue. The software just measures the energy levels of these meridians, right? So,
okay.
And it just happens to be programmed to mark the highest at red, That's where the practitioner's expertise comes in to make that decision to override that, and say, well, we're going to do the low energy meridian today, because you're undercharged, you're exhausted, you're rather than overcharged and overexcited.
So now, is that the case on like the detox panel?
Okay, the detox panel. So the detox panel. Well, okay, on the detox panel, they're really that's the personal category. With the detox panel, you really want to go for the high numbers there. I don't know exactly the low numbers.
The high numbers on the detox panel would be more severe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There you could interpret, if nothing is above 50 and 60, that you kind of wasted your time. Alcohol is the biggest problem. Alcohol detoxification. And pork, and this person doesn't really have a problem with gluten. You also can start from that they're probably not allergic to it. But this person, they're probably allergic to alcohol, and they have trouble detoxing caffeine. So you could double check that with, a vial or with your scan, or just keep that in mind for that particular patient, and then eventually you would you bring that back into your other work, So for example, there's a gene called aldehyde dehydrogenase, which I just put into the search function here. Aldehyde dehydrogenase is one of these. Aldehyde dehydrogenase. Okay. That detoxify aldehydes, but also alcohol. Does it mention that? Yeah, doing alcohol oxidation. Theoretically, once you realize that this person has this issue with alcohol, you may muscle test or include in a future treatment this particular enzyme. I mean, and you can put it, you can bring it into your treatment by way of you wanting it there, not because the computer figured it out, but because you figured it out, right? That's the way it adds up. You find here in your search function. And then, there's a few other things. Okay. Anyway, that's right. Yeah. But that's what it's all about, is to make cross connections and to connect the dots about what's going on with this person, and how to support most effectively. So, with a little experience, then, that's the kind of stuff that you find out. So, I teach an entire seminar about detoxification. It's very cool. So, we were just looking at alcohol. And that's just one gene. There's other genes that are involved in alcohol detoxification. And caffeine is a totally different gene, for example, that's involved. The cytochrome 450 gene. All these are in the software. But it's safe to say that this particular person, probably does not have gluten allergy. So, matter in what right here, you just make decisions that you go with the highest number. So in this case, since you have alcohol, caffeine, and pork, beef, you could tell the person to start eating organic meat and grass-fed meat and so on. But you can also just leave the color coding in place and do your feedback, because now it will do just the color-coded one minus the green, which is perfect, alcohol, caffeine, and pork. You could detox those three, or stimulate detoxification of those three items in one session.
Now, do you, is your goal to get these things to 100% rectified?
It is, but you want to, in general terms, you don't want to go more than 30 minutes per session with those kinds of treatments. Okay? If it's difficult to rectify, there's a couple of different tricks that you can do to speed it up or to push it through a little bit more effective. And maybe I should show you this real quick. So you see what it's doing now, right? It's doing all three highest numbers. Yep. And that's how all the panels work. And in this particular case, and this panel right here, it will be very appropriate to do exactly that. So with the acupoints, you do the same thing. Let just the computer do that. All right. So let me show you. Let's say that fungus here clear up in 20 minutes or 25 minutes, or let's say that it's a difficult to do something. But anyway, you get the 5-second auto thing here. See, this is a pulsating. It's a pulsating kind of feedback. It will just hit until it's over 85. So that was the second time. So stop because it's already at 86. Yeah. So it only pushes it past 85. But anyway, that's also the advantage of the quick cycle. It's more effective as far as harmonizing things, clearing things, rectifying. The general rule is you don't want to do much more than 30 minutes, You may have to come back another day and repeat some of these things, or, do some supportive actions like we spoke about, other panels in support, and then come back and check it again another day.